Welcome, welcome. It's Heather from MyMiniFrontPorch. I'd like to show you how to draw a farmhouse sink for your 1/12 scale dollhouse. If you're working in a different scale, you can still follow these steps, just adjust your measurements to suit your scale. The way I'm going to get started is I have two options. I can either go measure the sink I want to make, or I can Google a sink and get the measurements from there. And that's what I'm going to do today. 1/12 scale is 1 inch equals 1 foot. So I'm going to pop up over here where I found a farmhouse sink that I think is pretty great. And I'm going to borrow the measurements right off of their specifications here. I usually just Google scale converter, and that helps me figure out what sizes I'm working with. This is the one that comes up that I like the most. And it's great because I can put in the real life inches and it will convert it to millimeters right on the spot for me. You can see I already started. So the 1825 here is going to give me 38.6292 millimeters, and I'm just going to round it to 38.5. Coming back over here to Tinkercad, and I'm going to use this note feature to write down my measurements. 38.5 millimeters. Now let's get the other measurement. The length is 33.25 inches. We're close to 70, so I'm going to just round to 70. Didn't give us how deep the sink is, so I'm just going to eyeball it. This one on here, 20 millimeters is a little bit less than an inch. So if you're familiar with an inch, this is just slightly less than an inch. Now we want it to be, I've already got my ruler on here. I should have showed you guys that. Click your ruler on down here, and it will give you the measurements of your object. 70, 38.5. Now, the sink had those nice rounded corners, and we can make those adjustments up here. Radius. However you adjust this, bevels all the edges. You see that? So the thing is, it's not just beveling these outside edges. If you look, kind of a nice pillow shape here, it's beveling every edge. So what I'm going to do is use the hole feature to cut this into a slab. I think I'm pretty good with the way that rounded bit looks. So let's make a slab by clicking on our hole over here. And we want it to be the same size as the sink. We only want to cut off that bevel. So let me turn it to the side. You grab, see the box right there? You can either change the size here, or you can grab this little box down. And then you can select both objects by either clicking on one, holding the shift key, and clicking on the other. There we go. Or you can start out here in the blank space and click and drag, and it grabs both. And I'm going to come up here to align so that my hole completely covers this whole thing here. Then let's duplicate it because I want to make the top flat too. And let's pull it up. See those little triangles? You can see over on the side, distance from the ground is starting to show. I get as much as I wanted. It looks like it. All right, now let's grab all of these objects and use the group feature. Now I am rounded on just the sides and flat on the top and the bottom. And because the hole I used to cut the bottom off was 3 millimeters thick, now I'm floating 3 millimeters in the air. So I'm just going to change this to 0 and get back my feet back on the ground. Now I want the front of the sink to have that nice curve, but I want the back of the sink to be straight. So we're gonna do the exact same thing and use a hole to cut that off. Let's see, I'm gonna do 6 right there, and let's make it 70 long. And then let's grab it. Lining like before, and you can see I'm past that curve so that I'll have a nice flat back. Select them both and group. Now, we were at 38.5 and I cut 6 off. So if I put this back, it is going to change this curve a little bit, but only a little bit. And I still think it looks very nice. So there is the basis for our sink, and it's only 14 deep now. So let's say we want it to be an inch deep. If I know how many millimeters make an inch off the top of my head, I can type it in there. Or I can be a cheater and come down here to settings, change this to inches, make this say 1, by way deeper than we want, and then go back to millimeters. And that gives me a sink that's a foot deep, which is too deep, but I was just showing you how I cheat when I'm trying to jump around between inches and millimeters. I really feel like 20 was a good depth for the sink. And maybe if you already know the size of your cabinet, you're going to put it in, you know how deep you want it to be. Maybe you only want it to be 16. Either one works. Okay, let's put the hole in the middle of our sink. We're going to duplicate this shape by pushing the copy up here. And we're going to turn it into a hole. And then we have to decide how thick we want the edges of the sink to be. I think 3 millimeters will make it seem nice and thick. So I'm just going to go with that. And since we need 3 on each side, that means we have to subtract 6. So 64. And then let's keep it even. Let's take 6 off of here, 32.5. Select them both and align. Okay. Now, if I just group this, both of the here, I'm trying to show you. Both of these are on the ground. It won't. It's just going to make like a sink-shaped tube. So we need to raise the hole up off the ground, however thick you want the bottom of your sink to be. Then we'll have a little sink-shaped box. Select them both and group them. There is yours. Okay, let's put a little drain hole in our sink. And that's pretty easy too. We've just made the bottom of the sink 2 millimeters. So let's grab our cylinder and we're gonna turn the sides up as high as they go so that it gets nice and smooth and round. And then I honestly have no idea how big a sink hole is supposed to be, the drain hole. So I'm just gonna make one up. Then I'm gonna lift it off the ground, not the whole too, because I want it to be indented in the sink, but a little bit so it doesn't go the whole way through. Although if you do want it to go the whole way through, you could do that. Now we're gonna select them both just like before, and I love this align feature. It makes everything simple. We have a tiny little hole for the sink. And if you're ready to print just like that, all you need to do is come up here to export and choose STL, and it will go to your downloads folder on your computer. And then you can open the STL folder in your slicer. All right, I'm gonna end this one and I'm gonna start at another one to turn this into a double sink. So I hope you watch the next one. Thanks for joining me.